Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Giles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraft woman Matilda O'Kelly-Wooler. We warmly welcome the Royal Military College Duntroon delegation who are in attendance this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of A.B. Patterson College from Arundel, Queensland. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Please be seated if able. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here, we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Alan Wesley Giles Fripp. Alan Fripp was born in Perth on the 29th of March, 1914, the son of William and Laura Fripp. When Alan was 2 years old, his father William deployed overseas for service in the First World War. He served with the 16th Battalion in France and Germany before he was wounded in Bullecourt and made a prisoner of war. When the war ended, he was repatriated to Australia, where he worked as a packer for Kodak. William died of illness in 1931 when Alan was 17. Growing up, Alan was fond of surfing, swimming, football, tennis, baseball, and weightlifting. He was educated at Midland Junction State School and Perth Boys School, and in 1939 passed the final exam with the Federal Institute of Accountants. He studied secretarial and cost accountancy via a correspondence course and found work as an accountant. With the Second World War underway and having served in the 11th Battalion for 8 months, Alan Fripp enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 21st of June 1942, aged 28. He trained as an air gunner and was made sergeant in April 1943. Fripp embarked for overseas service from Sydney on the 25th of May 1943, arriving in the UK in July. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who throughout the course of the war joined Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. Further specialist training followed in England, and in October, Fripp was promoted to Flight Sergeant. At the end of June 1944, he joined number 463 Squadron, part of the RAF. As part of Bomber Command, the squadron flew the 4-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. On the night of the 18th of July, number 463 Squadron launched 8 bombers as part of a major Royal Air Force raid on the railway junction at Revigny in France. Fripp was the wireless operator and air gunner of Lancaster JOG, which took off just before 11 p.m. While the target was all but destroyed, the Luftwaffe's defences were strong, and 24 of the 110 bombers failed to return to base, one of which was Fripp's Lancaster. Investigations later determined that the aircraft crashed and exploded on the edge of the Marne-Rhine Canal, some 145 kilometres east of the target. Fripp was presumed to have been killed instantly, along with Australians Flying Officer Beverly Gifford, Warrant Officer Raymond Shipway, and Flight Sergeants John Boydell, Philip Pearce, and Frank Spencer, as well as British Sergeant Harold Newell. The bodies of the crew could not be identified and were buried in a communal grave at Revigny-sur-Ornain Cemetery. After the war, they were transferred to Charleroi War Cemetery. Fripp lies there with his crewmates under the inscription, "Ever remembered by his mother." He was 30 years old. Alan Fripp was dearly missed by his family and friends back home, who placed in memoriam notices in the local newspaper after his death. Flight Sergeant Alan Fripp's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with some 40,000 others from the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Alan Wesley Giles Fripp, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozier or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.